Hey everyone, it's Nick, and today I'd like to talk to you about materiality. For this, I'll be using Starlike's awesome guide that is also linked in the info box. For this build, we're going to make a small workshop. Start off by putting a 1 block high foundation on top of a level pad. This one happens to be 15 by 20. Using all cobblestone is super easy to see, right? This angle makes it a little easier to read. The left end of the build will be a storage shed. The lowest portion of the wall is 4 blocks high and the roof slope is done with half slabs. The overhang for the front entrance extends out further than the rest of the roof. This not only keeps people out of the rain, but it also helps give a visual cue for where the front door is located. Build up the walls for the main room. I like to have walls that are 4 blocks high before starting a ceiling, as it creates a volume that isn't cramped but still scaled down to a human level. The awnings are based off the walls, and then the roof ends up being however tall it needs to be. Start with the most important variable. Oftentimes you don't need to design every detail before you get started. Finish off the roof. Notice that the portion that is in line with the entrance is taller than the rest of the roof. While the majority of the roof uses a half slab slope, this section transitions to stair blocks. It's okay for a roof to change slopes, it doesn't need to be a single continuous line. The different volumes create varying degrees of hierarchy. In this case, the idea is to avoid a single glob of space, but instead subdivide volumes into something more personable. Again, the tall point, most visible from an approach at a distance, draws your attention to the entrance. It also helps taper the build off into the landscape. These are not accidental. Isn't she beautiful? Rhetorical, no, this is in fact a hideous build. If you haven't asked yourself what the hell is he doing yet, now would be the appropriate time. Cobblestone is a great material to use for figuring out the massing of a build because it can be used for all the shapes, full block, half block, stairs and post, plus it's readily available in survival play. It can be very difficult at times to design a shape and what it looks like because you're trying to envision two different things at the same time. Instead, break the problem down into smaller parts if you're having troubles. It might feel like you're doubling your efforts by building something twice, but it beats staring at a plot doing nothing. If you run twice as far but 3 times as fast, you will still finish sooner. Right now this build is ugly because it's very hard to read visually. Part of it is the texture pack, but there's an illusion occurring from the tessellated pattern which effectively creates an unintended camouflage. Instead of ugly, the more appropriate description would be confusing. The point here is that materials matter. From this point forward, I didn't have anything planned out, so let's experiment. Looking at the build, the roof seemed like the best place to start. Roofs and walls are rarely made from the same material, so replacing the roof with wood was a logical first step and made a drastic improvement right away. I liked the idea of a stone building, so the next step was to replace the foundation and corners with stone brick. We're just doing one small thing at a time here. With a lot of steps, each individual step happens quicker. Next, we replace the rest of the walls with a new material, in this case dyed clay. At this time there's no longer any cobblestone in the building. 3 materials, 3 steps, and it's all good. Moving to the inside, using wood instead of stone makes for a much warmer, inviting space. If you were up in the mountains in late autumn, which material would you prefer to sit on? Wood or stone? Despite being in the same environment, stone will be colder than wood due to inherent properties of the material. Stone and metal create more utilitarian spaces, strictly business, and wood, being organic, is normally more comforting. Back outside, the stone brick and cobblestone look too similar, so I opted to add a border around the foundation to help define the edge of the building and give it a stronger, distinct presence. For the interior of the storage shed, I opted to keep the cobblestone floor to reinforce the use of the space being different from that in the main building. A little bit of carpet adds a touch of warmth, and the windows through to the main building are stained the same color as the walls. Outside, barely visible, are trapdoors set up to look like sliding barn doors. The little nook isn't too functional, but it makes a nice home for a plant to live protected and undisturbed. Signage around the door adds some nice detailing. A place to sell crafted goods is ambiguously both inside and outside at the same time. Blurring those boundaries is really enjoyable. The alcove just inside the front door makes for a good spot to locate a workbench and anvil. The storage shed lives on the other side of the windows. Tools hanging on the wall are just paintings in the John Smith Legacy texture pack. For the main space, which really isn't that big, a large work table exists for projects, a heavy timber beam juts across to break up the volume, and schematics on the wall, which are just more paintings, give the room a little more character. Since I know a lot of you fine folks are not running any texture packs, here's how everything looks on default. Given the mountainous setting, I wanted the materials used to reflect the environment in which the building lives. A blue, gray and dark brown color palette reinforces the climate. This is important because of our format. How do you convey the feeling of sharp, crisp air in your lungs when there's only a computer screen? Have you ever been somewhere so cold that there was a centimeter of ice on the inside of the window? I went with white glass so that they could be frosted panes. Different experience. If you ever get the chance, visit Banff and Canmore just outside of Calgary, Alberta. Beautiful young mountains, very different from the US portion of the Rockies. Now what happens when you put the exact same building in a different environment? Just like real life, it doesn't make sense to build the same way in different locations. For the savanna biome, I wanted a color palette that told the story of dry, arid land with a warm but not overly harsh sun. Lighter colors naturally absorb less energy than dark. Ever been stuck in all black during the middle of summer? Quartz and hardened clay for the walls, birch wood roof and acacia wood for the interior. I took the opportunity to throw in some bright colors when possible, green for the table and yellow windows between the crafting and storage spaces. Instead of stolid doors and windows, gates and fence posts keep the space safe while also keeping it open to provide natural ventilation with a cross breeze. Next shout out goes to Kenya. It might not be a great idea to visit right now because Somalia is kind of being a jerk, but a safari is always cool. Tanzania might be a safer bet. What's this? Another location? Deserts tend to get really hot during the day and actually fairly cold at night. Buildings in these climates traditionally have thick stone walls to provide thermal absorption. The stone soaks up a lot of heat during the day, keeping the inside cooler, and then slowly releases that heat during the evening as the air cools, which helps regulate the temperature inside. Blue makes for a nice complementary color to yellow and orange. For this application it also mimics the element of water, which would always be welcome in this environment. Next destination, Tatooine. But if you can't get all the way out there, Tunisia is where Mos Eisley was filmed. Again, not the most stable region to holiday right now, so check Morocco instead. Southwest portions of Turkey also look like some of the Star Wars sets. Originally, I planned to go all wood for the swamp version to reinforce the wet, organic environment. Halfway through, I remembered there was mossy cobblestone, so I ripped the walls down and did it again. Green and brown are the best combo for an overtly organic palette. And speaking of Star Wars, notice how it's not good versus evil, depicted as white versus black? Instead, it has always been mechanical versus organic. The battle for Endor in Return of the Jedi is a great example. The fun feature here was to put part of a glass floor in, since the building is essentially a dock out over the water. There are some killer ruins in Cambodia, or Louisiana, whatever is easier for you. Since the realm is perpetually on fire or exploding, I opted to avoid anything wooden. Netherrack became the obvious choice for replacing anything wood in this version. Iron doors and iron bars were used for all of the openings, so I decided to use iron blocks instead of stone for the building frame. Taking cues from the netherrack and obsidian regarding color palette, black and purple clay filled in anything not iron. Travel recommendation for this one? Don't. I want to take the opportunity to include how I see all these spaces with a texture pack. The big lesson from this guide is the idea that everything in the Minecraft world is still just cube blocks. If you were to remove all of the textures and have a single color, nothing would be terribly interesting. And it doesn't matter what that color or texture is, because the problem lays with repetition and a lack of diversity. The way materials are blended together are what gives a space its unique flavor, style and makes it pop. Having any single continuous material will make for a lackluster build. Instead, find ways to blend wood with stone and incorporate various colors without overdoing it. Each version in this guide is limited to 5 materials. To get more advanced, either use monochrome palettes or complementary colors. The theories behind color gets way more in-depth than what I'm willing to explain here, but feel free to check it out on your own. Texture packs are wonderful additions to this game. You really can customize Minecraft to look however you like. Play with whatever visual meets your aesthetic, of course, but I highly recommend trying a few different ones out. Even a little higher resolution can make a significant difference. Maybe you'll even design your own texture pack. While this is the exact same building physically every time, each version creates a quite unique atmosphere and experience purely because of the materials used. When building, try to think about the ideas and imagery you want to convey, then select the right group of materials to match. Thanks for joining me on this wondrous journey of self-discovery and excitement. I have another great guide on negative space that goes far beyond the borders of a typical tutorial. There's a link in the info box if you'd like to see that. This video took a lot of work to put together, so I honestly hope that you've enjoyed it. You know how to let me know if you did. Have a wonderful day everyone, and I will see you next time.